A tense showdown erupts at 30,000 feet as Keanu Reeves' simple silver cross sparks a firestorm in the polished first-class cabin. Ava, a no-nonsense flight attendant, steps forward with a firm command: hide the symbol or face the captain, only to meet Keanu's steady, unshaken response: "This cross is why I'm still standing." What starts as a routine policy check explodes into a raw, heart-wrenching exchange that silences the cabin and sets a hidden camera rolling. Will Keanu bend to the rules, or will his quiet strength unravel them entirely? Who's got your vote, Keanu or Ava? Drop 1 for Keanu, 2 for Ava in the comments, and tell me where are you watching from. If this grips you, hit that subscribe button for motivation for success to catch more stories that stir your soul. Let us step into the turbulence and triumph of that unforgettable day. As dawn's tentative rays breached the horizon, Northgate International Airport thrummed with the restless pulse of departure. The terminal was alive with hurried travelers, their footsteps reverberating off gleaming floors like a staccato heartbeat. The air carried the rich scent of freshly brewed coffee, interwoven with the sharp tang of new leather luggage, an olfactory tapestry of anticipation and haste. Children darted through the crowd, their laughter piercing the din as they clutched vibrant bags, while harried professionals, tethered to their smartphones, cast fleeting glances at flight boards aglow with a dizzying array of times and places. It was a scene of orchestrated chaos, a microcosm of lives intersecting in fleeting urgency. Amid this whirlwind stood Keanu Reeves, a solitary figure moving with a quiet, deliberate grace that seemed to defy the frenetic rhythm around him. Clad in a threadbare gray t-shirt, faded jeans, and sneakers worn soft by time, he bore none of the ostentation one might expect from a man of his stature. There were no designer labels, no gleaming accessories, just an understated presence that drew the eye not through demand, but through its sheer authenticity. Around his neck hung a small silver cross, its subtle shine flickering with each step, a muted beacon against the simplicity of his attire. It was no mere ornament, it was a relic of resilience, a testament etched in metal, born from the furnace of personal trials and polished by an unwavering commitment to his own truth. As he neared the first-class gate, the clamor of the terminal seemed to pause, as if the world itself took a breath. The cacophony softened to a murmur, the air growing heavy with an unspoken shift. Keanu presented his boarding pass, its printed details a mundane formality that belied the quiet storm brewing beneath the surface. This was a realm of privilege, where luxury gleamed in every polished surface and curated smile, yet it was here, in this bastion of refinement, that an unexpected fracture began to emerge. At the gate stood Ava, a flight attendant whose poised silhouette and steely gaze embodied the airline's ethos of flawless professionalism. Her uniform was a study in precision, crisp lines and starched fabric that mirrored the rigidity of her demeanor. She was a guardian of order, her every movement a testament to years of training that left little room for improvisation or individuality. Beneath her polished exterior, however, simmered a deeper conviction, that harmony required uniformity, that the sanctity of this pristine cabin depended on the erasure of anything too personal, too distinct. To Ava, the first-class experience was a carefully controlled tableau, and deviations were not merely disruptions, they were threats. Her eyes locked onto the silver cross at Keanu's throat, and in that moment, something within her recoiled. That modest pendant, unassuming yet resolute, became a lightning rod for the judgments she carried, silent assumptions about propriety, about what belonged in this curated space. With a step forward, she spoke, her voice a measured blend of courtesy and unease. "Sir, I need to remind you that our cabin policy asks that any overt religious symbols be kept discreet during the flight." The words were not harsh, but they bore the weight of authority, a subtle command wrapped in the guise of a request. It was a line drawn in the sand, an invitation to conform. Keanu turned to face her, his movements slow and deliberate, as if time bent to his will rather than the other way around. His face held no trace of agitation, no spark of rebellion, only a serene clarity that seemed to radiate from a wellspring of hard-earned wisdom. "I apologize," he said, his voice a gentle rumble, soft yet unyielding, "but I believe that this symbol is not meant to incite or offend. It is a reminder of the strength I have drawn from my past, a token that has saved my life more times than I can count." His words sliced through the gathering tension, each syllable a quiet defiance not of Ava, but of the notion that authenticity must be hidden. There was no grandiosity in his tone, only the weight of a man who had faced the abyss and emerged whole, carrying this small emblem as proof of his survival. Ava faltered, caught in the space between protocol and the unexpected gravity of his response. Her fingers brushed his boarding pass, confirming his identity with mechanical precision, but her gaze lingered on him, unsettled. For a fleeting second, the armor of her professionalism cracked under the quiet force of his sincerity, a fissure born not of weakness but of recognition. Yet the machinery of rules and expectations bore down on her, an invisible weight that stiffened her spine. "We ask that you keep all personal expressions discreet in this shared space, sir," she repeated, her voice tighter now, laced with a firmness that betrayed her struggle. The message was unmistakable. In this world of polished surfaces and prescribed behaviors, individuality was a privilege to be relinquished, not a right to be claimed. The air between them thickened, charged with the unspoken clash of two truths, hers, rooted in the comfort of structure, and his, forged in the raw fire of lived experience. Keanu's cross, so small yet so potent, had become more than a piece of jewelry. It was a mirror reflecting the fragility of enforced sameness, a quiet challenge to the idea that peace could only be found in the absence of difference. Ava stood as the gatekeeper of a system that prized neutrality above all, yet in his steady gaze, she glimpsed something she had long buried, the cost of silencing one's soul for the sake of order. This was no mere disagreement over policy, it was a collision of worlds. Keanu, with his weathered simplicity and unapologetic honesty, carried the scars of a life fully lived, each mark a story of loss, perseverance, and redemption. The cross was not a decoration but a lifeline, a tangible thread connecting him to the moments when hope had been his only shield against despair. Ava, in her starched perfection, represented a different battle, one waged against vulnerability, against the messiness of human expression, in favor of a sterile harmony that demanded compliance. Her insistence was not cruelty, it was fear masquerading as duty, a fear of what might unravel if the rules she clung to were questioned. The cabin, once a sanctuary of predictable elegance, now pulsed with the undercurrent of their exchange. Passengers nearby shifted in their seats, their attention drawn not by raised voices but by the quiet power of a man who refused to shrink himself to fit an arbitrary mold. Keanu's presence, unassuming yet magnetic, forced a reckoning not just for Ava, but for everyone within earshot. What did it mean to belong in a space that demanded you leave pieces of yourself behind? What was the price of conformity when it stripped away the very things that made you human? Ava's hands trembled slightly as she clutched her clipboard, the last bastion of her authority. She had been trained to manage turbulence in the air, not within herself, and yet here she stood, confronted by a man whose calm refusal shook the foundations of her carefully constructed world. Keanu's eyes met hers, not with judgment but with a patience that seemed to say he understood her struggle, even if he could not yield to it. This isn't about rules, his silence seemed to whisper, it's about who we are when the rules fall away. In that moment, the terminal's polished veneer cracked, revealing the raw humanity beneath. The travelers, the staff, the very air itself bore witness to a quiet revolution, not of loud protests or grand gestures, but of one man's refusal to let his truth be diminished. The silver cross gleamed faintly, a symbol not of division but of survival, a reminder that strength often lies in the courage to stand alone, even amid a crowd. For Ava, it was a mirror she could not unsee, reflecting the parts of herself she had buried beneath layers of protocol. And for Keanu, it was simply who he was, a man who had walked through fire and emerged not with bitterness, but with a quiet, unshakable grace that demanded nothing yet changed everything. The cabin's atmosphere thickened, a subtle shift rippling through the space like a current beneath still water. 2 rows back, a passenger, stirred by the quiet drama unfolding before them, slipped a phone from their pocket, its lens discreetly capturing the scene. The ambient hum of the aircraft's engines, the faint rustle of hushed voices, and the delicate clink of silverware from a nearby seat dissolved into an almost reverent silence. What remained was the stark, unspoken potency of a moment where 2 worlds, one of steadfast authenticity, the other of rigid convention, stood at a crossroads, their collision reverberating far beyond the polished confines of first class. Keanu's gaze softened as he looked at Ava, his eyes carrying a depth that seemed to pierce through the tension without effort. When he spoke again, his words were not a rebuttal but a revelation, a window into a soul shaped by relentless trials. "This cross," he said, tilting his head just enough for the pendant to catch the cabin's muted light, its faint shimmer a quiet defiance against the sterile glow, "is not a fashion accessory. It is a symbol of survival. In the darkest moments of war, in the solitude of hospital rooms, in nights when I doubted I would see the dawn, I clung to it. It is the reason I continue to stand tall, even when the world seems intent on demanding conformity." His voice, low and deliberate, wove through the air like a thread of steel wrapped in velvet, each word a note in a hymn that rose against the tide of sameness. It was not a boast or a plea, it was a truth laid bare, forged in the crucible of a life that had known both shattering loss and unyielding resilience. Ava's eyes widened, a flicker of something unguarded breaking through the polished veneer she wore like armor. For the first time that day, the mask of professionalism wavered, revealing a glimpse of the woman beneath, a woman grappling with the weight of what she'd just heard. Her gaze darted between Keanu and the cross, caught in a silent tempest of doubt and recognition. Was it the object itself that unsettled her, or the raw, unflinching honesty it represented? The pendant gleamed softly, a mute witness to his story, and in its light, she saw not just a rule being breached, but a mirror reflecting her own buried struggles. "Sir," she said, her voice quieter now, tinged with a softness that betrayed her inner conflict, "we are simply trying to maintain a neutral environment in the cabin for all our passengers. It is not my intention to challenge your beliefs, but to ensure that everyone feels comfortable." The words were a fragile bridge between duty and empathy, heavy with the expectations of an institution she'd sworn to uphold, yet fragile in the face of the humanity staring back at her. Keanu's response came with the same measured calm, a stillness that carried the weight of countless unseen battles. "I have flown many times, and this pendant has never been an issue until now. I ask you, if someone were to wear a pin, a scarf, or any other personal emblem, would you request them to conceal it as well?" His question lingered, a gentle thunder rolling through the cabin, charged with a truth too potent to dismiss. It wasn't an accusation, but an invitation to look beyond the script of policy, to confront the inconsistency of a system that claimed neutrality yet policed the very essence of identity. The air grew taut, the unspoken implications wrapping around them like a thread pulled tight, threatening to snap under the strain of its own contradictions. In that suspended moment, the cabin became a crucible of its own. The passenger with the phone leaned closer, their recording a silent testament to the unfolding gravity. Others, once distracted by their own routines, now turned their heads, drawn not by noise but by the magnetic pull of a man who stood firm in his quiet dignity. Keanu's cross, small as it was, had transformed into something larger, a beacon that illuminated the fault lines of a world obsessed with appearances, a world that demanded conformity under the guise of comfort. His words echoed not just for Ava, but for every soul within earshot, stirring a question that gnawed at the edges of their thoughts. What did it mean to be seen, truly seen, in a place that prized invisibility? Ava stood frozen, her hands tightening around the edges of her clipboard as if it could anchor her against the tide of emotion swelling within. She had spent years perfecting this role, every gesture, every word honed to maintain the illusion of control. But now, faced with Keanu's unassuming strength, that control felt like a hollow shell. His story of war, of hospital rooms, of nights teetering on the brink pierced through her defenses, stirring memories she'd long suppressed. She, too, had known darkness, had worn masks to survive, but where Keanu had found a symbol to carry him forward, she had buried her scars beneath layers of protocol. His cross was not just a challenge to her authority, it was a reminder of the humanity she'd sacrificed to fit the mold she now defended. The tension between them was palpable, a silent dialogue of souls laid bare. Keanu did not press further, did not raise his voice or sharpen his tone. He simply stood there, a man who had weathered storms she could scarcely imagine, offering not judgment but understanding, an understanding that made her insistence feel small, brittle, and painfully inadequate. Ava's lips parted as if to speak, but no words came. Her training told her to double down, to repeat the policy with sterner resolve, yet her heart faltered, caught in the gravity of his presence. The cabin, once a sanctuary of predictable elegance, now bore the weight of something far greater, a confrontation not of rules, but of essence, where the stakes were not compliance but the courage to be whole. Around them, the other passengers became unwitting witnesses to a moment that transcended the mundane. The man with the phone kept recording, his breath held as if he knew he was capturing something rare, something that might ripple far beyond this flight. The soft clatter of a tray being set down, the rustle of a magazine being turned, all faded into insignificance, overshadowed by the quiet power of a man who refused to let his truth be silenced. Keanu's question lingered unanswered, a challenge not just to Ava but to the very framework she represented. If a cross must be hidden, what else must be surrendered? A scarf, a pin, a memory woven into the fabric of who you are. Where did the line end, and who decided what was too much? In the stillness that followed, Ava felt the ground beneath her shift. She had been taught to see her role as a protector of order, of comfort, of an experience meticulously crafted for those who paid for it. But now, staring into Keanu's steady eyes, she saw something she hadn't anticipated, a man who wore his survival not as a badge of pride, but as a quiet necessity, a lifeline that had pulled him through when nothing else could. His cross was not a threat to her neutrality, it was a testament to the strength that neutrality could never contain. And in that realization, she glimpsed the cost of her own rigidity, not just to him, but to herself, to the parts of her she'd locked away to become the flawless figure standing before him now. The cabin held its breath, suspended in the wake of his words. What had begun as a simple exchange over policy had unraveled into something profound, a collision of survival and suppression, of authenticity and artifice. Keanu stood as a quiet pillar, his cross a silent witness to a life that refused to bend, while Ava teetered on the edge of a reckoning she hadn't sought but could no longer avoid. The question he posed hung heavy, a spark waiting to ignite, and in its light, the boundaries of their worlds began to blur, revealing the fragile, beautiful truth that lay beneath. Ava paused, her eyes darting away momentarily as if searching for the right words. "I am simply following protocol," she murmured. Yet, even as she spoke, the silence that followed was laden with the weight of her internal conflict, a silent admission that perhaps the rules she enforced had begun to clash with the evolving realities of human expression. The cabin around them, once filled with the steady hum of routine, now throbbed with an undercurrent of emotion. Passengers exchanged glances, some sympathetic, others curious, as if each were witnessing a private, transformative moment unfolding before their eyes. The usual calm of the first-class cabin, soft ambient lighting, the muted clatter of fine china, the gentle rustle of magazines now bore the imprint of an emotional struggle that transcended the confines of flight etiquette. Ava, sensing that the situation was spiraling beyond a mere policy enforcement, took a deep breath and attempted to regain her composure. "If you refuse to comply, I must inform the captain of this matter," she said, her tone a mix of professional insistence and personal apprehension. The words hung heavy in the air, each syllable echoing with the potential for further discord. Keanu met her gaze with a quiet intensity. "Call whomever you need to, but understand this: it is not the symbol on my chest that defines me, it is the strength that it represents. The true issue is not my expression but the fear that drives us to hide who we truly are." His voice, calm and unwavering, carried a resonance that seemed to reach deep into the hearts of everyone listening. At that moment, the cabin's tension broke into a palpable hush. Every eye turned to absorb the raw vulnerability in his words. A fellow passenger, sitting near the bulkhead, whispered, "Is that really Keanu Reeves?" As if trying to reconcile the icon of Hollywood with the humble, sincere man before them. As the murmurs grew, Ava felt the solid walls of her professional facade begin to crack. Her mind flashed back to memories of her own struggles, a lifetime spent hiding behind policies, training sessions, and a carefully constructed image of perfection. In that mirror of Keanu's unwavering authenticity, she saw her own reflection, flawed and desperate for redemption. Minutes later, as the plane soared steadily above a patchwork of clouds and the world below seemed to blur into insignificance, Captain Reynolds, a man with a gentle yet authoritative presence, emerged from the galley. His calm steps and kind eyes brought with them a sense of reassurance to a cabin fraught with tension. "Mr. Reeves, I understand there has been some disagreement regarding our cabin policies," he began, his voice steady and empathetic. "I would like to hear your perspective on this matter." Keanu leaned forward slightly, his eyes reflecting both gratitude and a deep-seated resolve. "Captain, this pendant has been with me through the storms of my life. It is not worn to provoke or divide, it is worn to remind me of the battles I have overcome and the hope that carried me through. I stand here as I am, not as a symbol of defiance, but as a testament to the power of remaining true to oneself." His words, laced with both personal history and gentle conviction, filled the cabin with a sense of quiet triumph. Captain Reynolds nodded thoughtfully, his gaze shifting to Ava, who now stood silently at her post, her eyes clouded with remorse and dawning understanding. "Our policies are meant to foster an environment of mutual respect and comfort," he continued, "but perhaps in our pursuit of neutrality, we have forgotten that true respect lies in embracing each person's individuality." His measured tone carried the wisdom of a leader who had seen the transformative power of compassion in the midst of conflict. Ava's resolve crumbled beneath the weight of these words. She felt exposed and small, caught in the crossfire of duty and her own insecurities. In a moment of profound vulnerability, she stepped away from her station and approached Keanu once more. With tears welling in her eyes, she whispered, "I am sorry, Mr. Reeves. I was so blinded by what I thought I had to uphold that I forgot what it means to be human. I hid behind rules and lost sight of the courage it takes to be true to oneself." The cabin, once divided by tension, now shared in the collective relief of an unspoken catharsis. Passengers who had previously exchanged furtive glances now looked upon Ava with compassion. The camera of one brave passenger captured the moment, a testament to the power of vulnerability and redemption. The atmosphere was transformed from one of strict adherence to protocol to a space that celebrated the messy, beautiful truth of human emotion. In the days that followed, the ripple of that encounter continued to reverberate. News of the confrontation spread across social media, sparking conversations about authenticity, acceptance, and the courage it takes to live one's truth. Keanu Reeves remained the same gentle soul, quiet, dignified, and unwavering in his belief that a symbol can carry a lifetime of memories and serve as a beacon of hope in the darkest of times. Ava, too, began a journey of self-discovery. She realized that true professionalism was not about suppressing one's humanity but rather embracing it. In a heartfelt video recorded in the quiet solitude of her modest apartment, bathed in the gentle glow of early morning light, she spoke directly to the camera. "I spent years believing that hiding my personal beliefs made me strong, that following the rules without question was the path to respect. But today I understand that true strength comes from acknowledging our vulnerabilities, from daring to be real." She held the small silver cross that Keanu had once defended, a symbol that now represented not just his journey but her own awakening. "I no longer hide who I am," she continued softly. "I choose to be open, to embrace the beauty in our differences, and to live a life that honors the truth of my heart." Her sincere apology, laden with emotion and tempered by wisdom, touched the hearts of countless viewers. Comments poured in from all corners of the country, with people sharing their own stories of struggle and redemption. They resonated with her journey, a journey that began in the confined space of an airplane cabin and blossomed into a testament to the transformative power of self-acceptance. The story of that fateful flight became more than just an isolated incident. It evolved into a symbol of change, a reminder that each of us carries within us the capacity to challenge norms and inspire growth. Keanu Reeves, with his quiet dignity and steadfast integrity, had reminded everyone that authenticity is not a luxury, but a necessity. His unyielding stance had shown that sometimes, the bravest act is simply to be oneself, even when faced with the risk of judgment and exclusion. As the weeks turned into months, the incident continued to inspire discussions on respect, inclusion, and the power of individual expression. In schools, offices, and community gatherings across the nation, people spoke of that quiet moment on the airplane, a moment when a single voice had defied the conventions of conformity and opened the door to a more compassionate understanding of what it means to be human. For many, the lesson was clear: in a world that often pressures us to conform, the courage to be authentic can spark change not only in our own lives but in the lives of those around us. Keanu's simple yet profound declaration had become a rallying cry for those who felt marginalized, reminding them that their truth mattered and that their personal symbols, no matter how modest, were emblems of their strength and resilience. Today, as you reflect on this story, ask yourself, what is the symbol that carries your story? What is the mark of your resilience, your hope, and your unwavering determination to be true to who you are? Let the tale of Keanu Reeves and Ava inspire you to embrace your own identity, to reject the pressures of conformity, and to live a life that is rich with authenticity and purpose. Remember that every challenge you face is an opportunity to grow, every moment of doubt a chance to rediscover your inner strength. Just as Keanu held onto his cross, a symbol of his survival and hope, you, too, have something that defines you, that fuels your journey through the darkest nights toward the light of a new dawn. Thank you for joining us on this emotional journey. We invite you to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. What personal symbol or memory has empowered you during your most challenging times? Let us know, and let us inspire one another to live our truth without fear. If you found this story as moving as we did, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe to Motivation for Success. Your support helps us continue to bring you stories that not only captivate your heart but also remind you of the strength within. Together, we can build a community where authenticity reigns, where every voice is valued, and where the courage to be oneself is celebrated every single day. As we close this chapter of our journey, let the lesson resonate in your soul. True strength is found in the quiet moments of honesty and the brave decision to stand as you are. In a world that often demands conformity, your authenticity is the beacon that can light the way for others. Embrace your truth, live your story, and never be afraid to wear your symbol of hope for all to see. Thank you for watching. Stay inspired, stay true, and always remember, your journey is your power.